Here we are back together again, friends, for another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.
My name is Morganne. I've been diabetic for 3 years upcoming in November here. I'm not sure what to say at the beginning, really, to describe me. Just adult female that didn't think I'd have to do this at 18 years old.
Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. I know this is going to sound crazy, but Blue Circle Health is a nonprofit that's offering a totally free virtual type 1 diabetes clinical care, education, and support program for adults 18 and up. You heard me right. Free. No strings attached. Just free. Currently, if you live in Florida, Maine, Vermont, Ohio, Delaware, Alabama, or Missouri, you're eligible for Blue Circle Health right now, but they are adding states quickly in 2025. So make sure to follow them at Blue Circle Health on social media and make yourself familiar with bluecirclehealth.org. Blue Circle Health is free. It is without cost. There are no strings attached. I am not hiding anything from you. bluecirclehealth.org. You know why they had to buy an ad? No one believes it's free. I'm having an on-body vibe alert. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Eversense 365, the only 1-year wear CGM. That's one insertion and one CGM a year. One CGM, 1 year. Not every 10 or 14 days. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. If you or a loved one was just diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and you're looking for some fresh perspective, the Bold Beginnings series from the Juicebox Podcast is a terrific place to start. That series is with myself and Jenny Smith. Jenny is a CDCES, a registered dietitian, and a type 1 for over 35 years. And in the Bold Beginnings series, Jenny and I are going to answer the questions that most people have after a type 1 diabetes diagnosis. The series begins at episode 698 in your podcast player, or you can go to juiceboxpodcast.com and click on Bold Beginnings in the menu.
My name is Morganne. I've been diabetic for 3 years upcoming in November here. I'm not sure what to say at the beginning, really, to describe me.
It's weird.
Just, adult female that didn't think I'd have to do this at 18 years old.
You're how old now?
21.
21, diagnosed at 18, had diabetes for 3 years, and an adult female. I like you introduced yourself like you were on a form. Adult female, 5'7".
5'5", actually.
5'5". I don't know kilos, so I don't want to guess.
I don't even know. It's we weigh in pounds.
So you were, do you feel like your diagnosis came out of nowhere?
Absolutely. Okay. I was farm raised, so like really healthy immune system, but we never went to the doctor. I never had a family doctor or anything. We just, if we were sick, you'd sleep it off and drink tons of water, which ironically, it was very bad advice for me, considering it took a long time to get diagnosed.
Okay. You made me think of that packaging. What is it? Farm raised, grass fed, grain finished?
Pretty much.
Something like that.
A little crunchy Hippy Dippy. That's where my parents are, yeah.
How does that work, by the way? Like they finish, like some people finish the beef with a little grain for flavor, even though they've been grass fed. Is that right?
I have no idea. We're like small like hobby farms. So we had cows, but we always fed them as much like non-grain stuff as possible.
Okay.
So we got them good hay and
gotcha.
We had a good pasture. So yeah.
And apparently there's a whole theory about feeding them grass, but then finishing them off with grain before you slaughter them. I don't know.
Maybe it's the sweetness in the GMO.
I have no idea. But wait, tell me more about the farm. What's a hobby farm? Because a lot of...
okay.
But first of all, Morganne, how do you say your name?
Morganne. It's French. It's actually Morganne, but my dad's Quebecois and my mom's English from Ontario. So that was a very interesting mix. They didn't know each other's language when they met. Tree planting out here in BC.
Oh, they are hippies.
They are hippy dippy. Oh, yeah.
Did that translate to you?
Not entirely, other than I smoke weed. And I have some similar beliefs, but like not as extensive.
I got to say, if weed smoking makes you a hippie at this point, I think that's bad. I think we're all hippies. Then.
We're all screwed. You're not you though. You're good.
Oh, you say that, but who knows?
I might try it.
I got my stress too.
That's fair.
So, okay, because I was looking at it, I'm like, am I mispronouncing this? There's a lot of extra letters in your name, but Morganne.
There is.
Like
Morganne.
Okay.
Anne on the end of Morgan.
Morganne.
Mm-hmm. That's the English way to say it, I suppose.
A hobby farm. Like, it doesn't make money, right? Like, you don't live off it?
No, well, we live off it. It just supplies us, basically. So we have enough chickens for us, enough goats for us, enough cows for us. We got like quails, pigs at times. We had rabbits. Oh my gosh. I wanted rabbits when I was younger. And so I went to my dad. I'm like, hey, can we get bunnies? Because I'd seen friends with like pet bunnies. And my dad's like, we're not going to get anything that doesn't supply some kind of profit to the farm. I'm like, let's get meat rabbits. We'll eat them when they're older.
Meat rabbits?
They're delicious.
Wait, what kind of rabbits are good eating?
Flemish giants. So they're a meat breed.
Okay.
I wanted baby rabbits.
Your dad's like, if it can't like poop on something and make it grow, or I can't eat it, we're not buying it.
Pretty much, yeah.
So wait, your parents showed up in BC to plant trees?
When they were younger, like they had left their houses. They did some backpacking down in Mexico, separate, but like at the same time. And then they met planting trees up here at Queen Charlotte Islands.
Listen,
and then they moved back. Yeah.
You're old enough now, okay? You can ask them, like, come on, you just did that to get laid back then, right? Like, that's the...
They're definitely not those kind of people.
Really?
It would have been like, oh, we're helping the environment and it's a good way to make money. Because I think like it was pretty good pay.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's still pretty good now. I'm not too sure though, but I know that they said that it was pretty good back then.
They pay you to show up and plant the trees?
I think so, yeah. I don't think it was a volunteer process. I think you show up in a group and you get paid. And then like however many trees you plant, you get paid by the tree, I think is what my dad explained it as.
That's less hippie. And then eventually...
A little less hippie, yeah. But they are still like, oh my goodness. They have a farmstead now out here and they like self-rely on most things. And they've cut out, like they turn off the Wi-Fi at night. And
they turn off the Wi-Fi at night? Because...
Yeah. Because of the waves of the Wi-Fi being detrimental to the health. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They wouldn't be happy to figure out, well, they weren't very happy to figure out that my Dexcom and stuff is Bluetooth. I didn't tell them when I was diagnosed in the hospital. My dad was actually picking up my brother when I got out of the hospital. And that's when he found out because I was just getting back.
Tell me now that you thoughtfully, while being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, considered I shouldn't tell my dad this thing is Bluetooth. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Eversense 365. And just as the name says, it lasts for a full year. Imagine for a second a CGM with just one sensor placement and one warm-up period every year. Imagine a sensor that has exceptional accuracy over that year and is actually the most accurate CGM in the low range that you can get. What if I told you that this sensor had no risk of falling off or being knocked off? That may seem too good to be true, but I'm not even done telling you about it yet. The Eversense 365 has essentially no compression lows. It features incredibly gentle adhesive for its transmitter. You can take the transmitter off when you don't want to wear your CGM and put it right back on without having to waste the sensor or go through another warm-up period. The app works with iOS and Android, even Apple Watch. You can manage your diabetes instead of your CGM with the Eversense 365. Learn more and get started today at eversensecgm.com/juicebox. 1 year, one CGM.
Yeah, part of me did think that for a second. It was more so now I'm dependent on a drug, and that was the one thing my parents did not want for me.
Yeah, well, you get over that pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. Pretty damn quick.
I like you so far, Morganne. This is going good. Yeah.
I'm very glad.
I appreciate you having a good headset, too. What do you use that thing for in your regular life?
I bought it for this.
Oh. Stop it.
I know you have a quality that you want it to sound good, and so I bought a headset. It was on clearance at the source because they're wiping out into a Best Buy, and so I got it.
This is so weird. Can I share something with you?
Sure.
I think I'm going to cry.
No, don't cry.
No.
Not this early. I have more to tell you.
I'm having such a bad couple of days. And then just to think that you were like, I want this to sound good. I'll go buy a headset. It really like, God, this is where I'm at today. I feel so grateful. Thank you. God, I feel like it now. I feel like a hippie. Jesus Christ. All right. Oh God, I got so sad for a second. Like happy sad. I was like, she did a thing that was so nice. Oh, okay. All right. Let's get past this. This is ridiculous. Okay. Parents, blah, blah, blah. I was going to make a joke about your dad planning one last thing before he got done. I'm going to let that go because you're 21. And then now we're here. So any other type 1 in your family or autoimmune stuff in your family?
No. So no type 1 that I know of, other than I did ask my grandmother. And this is where I figured it's probably come from. On my mom's side, way back in the day, there were some kids that died young. They didn't know why. I'm willing to bet they died of DKA. And they just were never diagnosed.
Talking about like 100 years ago or more?
Probably, yeah, something like that. Like 100, even like 80 years ago. Like there was a few different kids that died young at like 11 or so in the family on my mom's side. Yeah.
Okay. How about other autoimmune stuff for you?
Nothing that's been diagnosed apart from, I don't know. Nothing really. My parents are definitely not part of the going to go get diagnosed types.
Do you think your parents have autoimmune issues that they just don't?
They might, yeah, for sure. PCOS. Actually, my grandmother, if that's considered, I don't know. My grandmother had her left ovary removed when she was younger because it wrapped around like 14 times. Yeah. And then I also had, we'll get to that, but I also had my own run-in with it as well.
You had your own run-in with PCOS?
I'm assuming not diagnosed, but I've had an ovarian cyst twice.
What do you do for it? Is it like, what are we talking about? Like harsh periods, acne?
Yes. Weird. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Acne all over. Harsh periods. 1 week it'll be normal. 1 week it'll be like heavy. 1 week it'll be like just not there at all. It'll skip. Very odd. But I also have, and this is I did put this into the interview request. I have a birth defect.
Oh no,
I have
it's
a
here.
bicornuate uterus.
It's here. It says, I have a wacky birth defect.
I do. Yeah. It's a bicornuate uterus. So it's called a heart-shaped uterus. It happened when I was in my mom's womb. And it apparently most people don't get diagnosed with it because they only find it after they've had like a whole bunch of miscarriages.
Okay.
But when they went into ultrasound my ovarian cyst, they found it.
2-for-1 kind of a situation.
Apparently so. This was only 2 months after I was diagnosed.
Oh, that sucks. And does this mean you can't have kids?
I don't know. I haven't tried. I'm not sure how fertile or whatnot. I've not done like any tests or anything. I'm not interested in kids at this current moment in life. 21, still too young.
What is it called again? What?
Bicornuate uterus. You can look it up. It'll show you a picture. It's pretty funky.
I am trying to look it up right now.
But yeah, I woke up 6:30 in the middle of the morning in excruciating pain. Now, of course, women, we get period poops. We got to run to the toilet. So I thought it was one of those. But as soon as I stood up, I started feeling really faint. And I started losing vision. I thought it was my blood sugar. So I went back to my phone, checked. I was not like low or anything. I think it was at like 9 or something. So it was pretty high, actually. Figured it wasn't that, but I was panicking. So I called my grandma. We went to the ER and they tried to say appendicitis, but I'm like, no. Listen to me. This is an ovarian thing. They checked the same day with an ultrasound. And lo and behold, I was right.
Wow. Heart-shaped uterus appears indented or heart-shaped with a dip or cleft at the top.
Yeah, we're not sure how deviated it is because they come in various. Yeah.
Well, I guess you won't find out till you try to plant some trees.
I guess not.
Some tree planting boy starts talking to you.
Mine likes to drive excavators.
Oh, you found a boy already?
Yeah. He's pretty sweet.
Oh, good for you. And he drives what? Backhoes?
Like anything he can get his hands on, big machinery. He drives mostly a rock truck at work, but he bought himself a mini excavator.
He's got like a little backhoe in his house.
He does.
I rented one once. Oh, do you want that story?
Yes.
We bought this house, which was a very long time ago. It's this very tiny little house, and it had way too many trees and way too many bushes on it. And one of the things it had was this line of forsythia bushes. These like bright yellow. They're very pretty, but they're dirty and they just kind of grow under each other. They're unruly. And these had just not been managed for what it felt like decades. And they were just growing into the ground and on top of themselves. They were a mess. So I rented a small like excavator to pop them out with, and then a dumpster to put them into and have them hauled away. And that was going to happen on Saturday. The thing was going to get delivered on Saturday. On Thursday, I was outside kind of cleaning up, getting ready for all that. And this car pulls up in front of my house. It stops right in front of my house and sits there for like a good long time, long enough that I feel like, well, I have to go down and say something because I'm either going to be shot from a distance or shot close up. Let's make sure I see the attackers, at least in case I live through it. I go down to the road, making it sound like it's very far. It was like 50 feet. I went down to the road. It
was a trek.
Oh my God. I got onto my SUV. Like I had to drive down. No, I just went down and I was like, hey, can I help you? there's this old couple in the car, like late 60s, maybe even older. And they were like, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you. And the woman just gets like up her nerve and she puts her hand on her husband and she says, he built this house. Oh. And I said, oh, you built this house? And he goes, yeah. He goes, and then she's like, we lived here for this long. And I stopped and I went, oh my God, stop. I'm like, we found a wedding photo in the attic when we moved in. My wife won't let me get rid of it.
Oh.
Like, my wife won't let me get rid of it because she thinks the person could be dead and like it'll like, you know, like some hocus pocus will come upon her.
Hocus pocus, something's going to happen.
But I'm like, so I run in and I get it. And they're like, no, oh my God, that's our daughter's wedding portrait. Thank you. And I was like, you're welcome. And I gave it to them. It was really lovely. And then we kept talking. And through the course of talking, he explained to me how he built the house. Like we tore the house down now, but it was, I don't know if you know this, but you used to be able to buy houses at Sears. Does that make sense to you?
Oh my goodness, really?
Yes. You could buy them in pieces. And he and his brother would get done work every night. They'd go to Sears, buy the next part of the house, come and install it until finally it was done, which explained why there was newspaper in the walls as insulation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
But anyway, during the course of this conversation, he points very proudly to the line of forsythia bushes and says, I planted those with my daughter.
Oh,
and I thought, I'm going to rip them out of the ground 2 days from now, but I did not say that.
Just let him live the happiness.
I felt so terrible. And the crazy reason why this is in my head is my brother and I were talking about this the other day because my brother feels bad about making a change to a house he's moving into.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him, I said, I felt like I was just grateful the guy didn't come the following week.
Fair. Yeah, because if it had been just a week later, he might have even seen them ripped out.
Yeah, he might have seen them in a big dead, like wilting pile, like waiting to be picked up. But anyway, I used the mini excavator for that.
Did you? Yeah. No, they're fun. The first night we got it in, we were picking up pallets and stuff and just playing around. They're awesome.
All right. I'm glad you found out Go ahead. No. You found out what?
I found out my ATV key works in it. I have a Yamaha Kodiak 400 and the key turns it. You
are very Canadian. You're not going to meet a ton of 21-year-old girls here that are like, I have an ATV.
Well, I got it from inheriting it from my uncle. But yeah, no, it definitely, that going out in the bush on the weekends, that's definitely pretty BC of us.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so I want to find out more about your diabetes because people complain that I don't talk about diabetes on my diabetes podcast a lot.
Fair enough. I actually have an interesting one for you.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's very interesting. So I actually wrote it down a little bit and I went back into some of my test results. So if you look back in February of 2020, my A1C was 5.7. Mm-hmm. This was before diagnosis. I was November 16th, 2021. So 5.7 seems pretty high for a young 17-year-old, I think I would have been at the time.
I think so.
Uh-huh. I was taking ferritin test. I was at 12. I checked my TSH, 1.13 for you.
Your ferritin was low for like before your diagnosis?
Yeah, at February 2020. Okay.
And how long after that was the uterus thing?
That was after my diagnosis. So that was, I think it was January of 2022.
It was a lot longer since then. Okay. Have you addressed the low iron, low ferritin ever?
Not really, because I brought that home to my mom. She goes, oh, you eat enough red meats. I feed you enough good foods. You have enough spinach.
But are you tired or weak or any of the things that come with having low ferritin?
Definitely. I had it rerun recently. It was 43.
When Addie came on and talked about this, she said, the endocrinologist that came on to talk about thyroid stuff, she said that a woman of menstruating age, she thinks 70 is bare bones as low as it should go.
Oh, okay. I've been trying to say to my doctors, like, look, I feel like I'm iron deficient, but I just get, swat it away because that's their listening skills for you.
It's buried in the thyroid episode with her.
I'll have to listen if I haven't already. I might have fallen asleep to that one, so I might not have caught the end.
Oh, I think it's nice when people fall. I fall asleep to stuff.
It's so comforting.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad.
I really like it.
It does sound strange though, out of context. Like I like to, like I'm 21. I like to fall asleep to a podcast made by a 53-year-old guy who every once in a while talks about diabetes in his diabetes podcast. And
so anybody who doesn't understand won't understand. Anybody who does really does.
I hear you. Yeah. When you find a voice that you like, it is comforting.
It's soothing. Yeah.
All right. We'll get back to your iron thing. So where are you going with this story?
So, I started, I'm LADA. I actually got myself diagnosed LADA.
Okay.
Now they first thought type 1, but I had my CPEP rerun. When I was diagnosed, it was 147, which the way that we measure it here is like 300 to 1,090 is the normal numbers.
Okay.
So that's pretty low. But recently I got it redone in May and it's 275.
So that's why they say that there's an indication for a lot of, because this is a very slow onset of this type 1 for you.
This is 3 years after diagnosis where it jumped back up to just below the normal, like low-ish number for people. So I asked the doctor, I said, would this be LADA? And finally I got a yes. If
you are seeing your C-peptide go in the other direction, and is your insulin usage fairly low compared to what you expect?
Oh, yeah. So I need the Omnipod. I adore the Omnipod. Thank you, by the way, for giving me the confidence to actually get one. I was too afraid to have something that would be constantly giving me insulin. But once I figured out you could back out the insulin, that was phenomenally just a life changer. I can give myself a quarter of a unit just to bump myself down, where like half a unit would be too much. I think my total daily dose is like on average between, sometimes it'll be 9, sometimes it'll be 16. If I'm on my period having really bad hormones, it'll be like 20.
And that's total?
Total, basal and bolus.
So given that you have PCOS on top of all that, have you considered asking them for like a GLP medication?
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was really happy to be able to come on here and actually ask you, do you think a GLP might like help me, even though now the issue is I have poor appetite already?
Yeah. So I can tell you how we're trying to get around that with Ardent. So first of all, I know it's only 20 minutes in, but not a doctor, not advice. I really seriously, I barely got through high school. Okay. But here are the conversations that I've seen on the podcast of recent, right? Little girl, 15 years old, using like 70 units a day. She's down to like 3 or 4 now. I think her mom texted me recently. It's, like she's off her pump. She's barely using any insulin, etc. Guy that came on, 50 years old, LADA, was using a ton of insulin by the time he was 6 years in. They put him on a GLP for weight loss. He at the moment he's going to need insulin at some point again in his life. But at the moment, it wasn't using any as the time he recorded. And so if your C-peptide's going the other way, then that kind of feels like reminiscent of his story. If you have PCOS symptoms, that seems reminiscent of my daughter's story. And it just makes you wonder, like, what would happen if you added it.
Right? Like, would I go down like that young girl who barely uses any insulin and has been able to take off her pump? I mean, I wonder. It's worth asking your doctor about, although you're in Canada. So, I mean. Yeah, that's my problem. Yeah. I could try around. Now, there is a specific clinic run by diabetics out in a nearby town. Once the government will finally let me drive, maybe I can get myself appointments there. Why won't the government let you drive? So I had to do some blood work. I had to do paperwork for them to sign off that I was type 1 diabetic when I was diagnosed. When they gave me a pamphlet about type 2 diabetes in the hospital, it said on there, you should tell your licensing provider. So I did. That was the stupidest idea ever because they told me I had to do paperwork and take it to the doctor, which I did. And then they give me blood work, which I do. And then they send that off to Drive Safe BC. And then they're supposed to sign it off. And then I go back in a few months later to ask like, hey, is it done? I can't apply for my license. I can't do anything about my license. And they said, oh, it's going to be a little bit. They're back ordered and it's actually expired. So you have to do it again. And so I've done it twice now and still nothing. So you do it. They don't get to it in time. It expires because it hasn't been looked at. And then they tell you to do it again. And then it happens again. Yeah. So I can't get a license. It's so bad. I want you all to keep this in mind when you hear people say like, oh, we should have like, state sponsor this and state sponsor that. Because I know people who live in the Canada and and they have issues and they go to a doctor and say, hey, this is my problem. But if your problem's not going to kill you, you go to the bottom of the list. Yeah. Right. And you're going to find that problem with that iron ask. Yeah. You're going to say, hey, I'd like to be seen for my iron. And they're not going to see you for a year. And, right. And then you're seeing it with is it Drive BC? Is that what they call it? Yeah, Drive Safe BC. Whatnot. It's like just governmental. There's no actual building about it. You have to call them only. Yeah. So there's that. And then
Yeah, so if you know a place you can go that is run by like type 1s or type 2s or whatever, that you can go make this case and say, look, I know that a GLP medication is not, FDA approved or whatever you guys call it up there for PCOS, but here's some stories of people who've been helped by it. Also, here's some stories who have been helped by this. Also tell them my story, which is I had low ferritin until I went on a GLP, and now my body, because my digestion has changed, I believe, is picking up my ferritin on its own, and I don't have a problem with ferritin anymore. I used to have to get...
I heard that the other day. I was wondering. I was like, wait, what is it that stopped you from having to get infusions?
I just think it changed my digestion. So my food, because your mom's right, eh? You are eating enough.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But it's not staying in there long enough to get absorbed for some reason. And that's my experience, right? I 100% tell you that I started taking a GLP medication. I lost just about 50 pounds and my ferritin level shot up, and it stays up now.
That would be amazing. Because not feeling shaky would help tremendously, because I've got anxiety and my anxiety symptoms feel like a low blood sugar. And so sometimes I'll feel low when I'm not actually low, just based off of anxiety. And then I'll finger check to make sure I've gotten better at doing that first before just downing sugar. And it's so annoying.
Well, let's what if a little farther, okay? Because again, not a doctor, not advice, don't know anything, but interviewed a lady recently. I don't know if it's up yet. Maybe it is. I'm sorry. There's so much.
No, that's okay.
A lot of her child's bipolar issues went away on a GLP medication. I ask out loud, if anxiety is inflammation related, what if the GLP reduces your inflammation and reduces your anxiety? Now,
I wonder. That would be amazing if you could do that.
Am the problem. Okay. I don't know how much you weigh, and I don't know how things work in the canidia, but it's possible that you're not going to be able to be covered for this one way or the other. But more importantly is the way they do the dosing for some people. And we found this for Arden, because Arden started taking GLP for PCOS stuff, and it immediately it pushed her insulin needs down 20%. Maybe it was awesome, right? And cleared up a lot of her PCOS issues. But Arden was also one of those people who already wasn't very hungry. And then she just was not hungry at all. Yeah. And we tried just telling her, you got to eat through it. And she did, but struggled to do it enough, lost what we thought was too much weight, took her off of it for a month so she could put 7 pounds back on, which she was able to do. We were on a FaceTime the other day, and she goes like this. She goes, look. And I was like, okay. And so she got back to where she wanted to be. But right away, as soon as the GLP was gone, her insulin needs went wonky. And the biggest problem is that the spikes she was seeing at meals, if you don't pre-bolus, do all the things, suddenly they were back again. And she had gotten really used to being she could bolus last minute, all that stuff, and everything super cool. So we're left with just take this and shoot this stuff, because it comes in a pen, right? The lowest one she's using Mounjaro is 2.5 milligrams. And she's like, as soon as I do this, I'm not gonna be able to eat again. And I was like, yeah. So we took a little bit of advice from other people who listen to the podcast and bought vials, sterile vials. And then instead of injecting the pen into Arden, we inject the pen into the vial and then draw out the medication with an insulin needle and give her less.
Oh, I see.
We're in the middle of figuring out what dose impacts her blood sugars and her other stuff without taking away her appetite. And that makes sense. We're in like week 3 of that experiment right now.
Okay. So yeah, it would probably be pretty hard to get them to give me a GLP because I'm not I'm on the lower end of the BMI scale. Mm-hmm. And so there's not really much. The PCOS might be my biggest thing, but then I would have to get myself diagnosed with it. I didn't go in the second time I had an ovarian cyst burst. I just knew what it was.
You're just like, oh, I know what this pain is. I'll live through this.
I'm cold and sweaty and I feel like I'm dying. Oh, I had to run to the washroom first thing. It's first thing in the morning. I know what this is.
We think that happened to Arden while she was at school last year.
Yeah. It's not fun.
Yeah. Because she's had one removed surgically.
Has she? Oh, yeah.
That was not fun either. And then the next time it just must have happened because she's in the hospital with terrible, pain, and it doesn't go away for a few days. And it lingers for a week right afterwards.
Oh yeah, it's quite a kick. Well, because if it's ruptured, it's free flowing blood, so your intestines go, "Why are we internally bleeding?" And it sends all those nerve signals. That's why it's so excruciating. That's what they told me.
Yeah, that's something. And we don't really have a great way to treat any of this.
No, unfortunately not.
But anyway,
kind of kick in the butt.
Yeah, I don't know what you're gonna do. Sounds like you're, but
yeah, yeah, but I'll figure it out. I'm still alive.
Yeah. Listen,
I did want to ask you something about. I don't know if you've heard a lot of people talking about their beta hydroxybutyrate number.
What?
When they're in DKA.
Tell me more.
So I looked this number up because I was like, why is my number so high? Your normal range is supposed to be like 0.3.
Okay.
And when I was in the hospital, because I'm curious about like how close was I to really keeling over when I was diagnosed, because it was a while before I got seen. It was a 7.62 and jumped to 7.77 when I was in there at night. Next morning, I was back down to 0.78.
And what is your question about it? Because nobody's really brings. I mean, honestly, I can't think of anybody bringing that up in their diagnosis source.
If you look it up, beta hydroxybutyrate, could spell it if you want, but it'll probably autocorrect you. I believe it shows you how much like toxicity maybe, or how much in DKA you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you hit like 3, you're in DKA, like full blown.
Okay.
And I was at 7.77. I'm like, was I just my body somehow by this string of gums keeping a baby tooth in the mouth, like alive when I was going in there? And the doctors were all like, oh, no, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
You're still talking. You're fine.
Yeah. I'm like, I have a feeling I'm about to keel over.
So you feel like you just want to know how close you were to like shuffling off?
Yeah. I'd gotten COVID a month and a half before I was diagnosed. However, I had been needing to urinate more frequently for like months. Like my ex-boyfriend, the one that dumped me, like, was it 3 months after diagnosis? Lovely, man, that one was. We'd been together for 3 years, and he started noticing at the very end of it that I was needing to use the washroom a lot more frequently. He told me, I should get that checked out. And it was like 4 months after that I finally did, because I thought I had a bladder infection. I went in. No, go to the ER right now. You're diabetic. And so I'm like, oh, okay. My grandma, my lovely, lovely grandma. I love that woman. She took me there and she stayed with me. She's the only one who came and saw me in the hospital.
Okay.
Couldn't tell my parents, so
couldn't tell your parents because?
Well, first of all, they wouldn't have been able to come in because of the COVID vaccine thing.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, just their reaction of me being medically dependent. Their first is to fix it.
How close are your parents to wanting to pray this away?
They're not praying it away. They're feeding me healthy foods away.
Oh,
they believe wholeheartedly they can fix it.
With apple cider vinegar, maybe? No.
A nut meal diet. And they looked into some researchers and such that apparently had cures out of diet. So, yeah.
Oh, your parents want to feed you ground up nuts to get rid of your type 1 diabetes?
Yeah. So that don't get much support there, unfortunately.
No. We need to move.
Yeah. I'd already moved out, thankfully.
Oh, okay.
My grandma's, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I think honestly, it was 2 months after I'd moved out. My body held off because it knew my parents would have had me just sleep and drink water till I would have gone comatose.
Jeez. There's a couple of those stories like every couple of years that pop up of people who are like, it's usually for religious reasons, they don't treat it or something.
Definitely not religious.
Yeah.
Very much like more so pagan.
Oh, we'll let the mother take care of it.
Yeah.
Am I making things up or am I getting closer?
No, you're like more spot on now. Paganism, Mother Gaia, that is their belief. Oh. That's the kind of crunchy hippy dippy.
Jeez. How many kids they got?
2, me and my brother, who pisses them off because he's trans.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that must not be good for them.
Oh, my goddess. No.
Oh, did you say, oh, my goddess?
No, I was trying to say goodness, but I've got like the worst. Try to put 2 words into one. My mouth just stutters it all.
Because I might call the episode, oh, my.
Do not. Oh, my God. No.
Oh, my.
Fuck, just hit my head.
Oh, my goddess.
Laughing.
Okay, so I have here with a little Googling, etc.
Oh, yeah.
DKA levels can rise above 10 millimoles per deciliter or even higher. At this point, the blood becomes highly acidic, which can lead to severe dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, and ultimate organ failure or death if not treated. So it sounds like maybe in the 7s you were obviously high, but I don't know
not
that
quite
you're
there.
ready to pop. Yeah.
Okay, good. That was because I had only gone in for a urine test because I'd called in for work, and then of course they're like, "Oh, you need a doctor's note to be sick." Big corporate. And so I went and I called the 811 number because I'm like, I'm not getting a doctor's appointment. It's 5:00 at night. And then they told me, yeah, I'd go into the walk-in. So I did. And then I ended up in the ER from Monday till Friday.
Jeez. When you get this diagnosis, I want to first understand, they give you a Dexcom. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love, the CDE that is here, like I'm in a senior town. So they have like 4 type 1 diabetics they deal with. They kept me supplied with Dexcom for like 8 months before my MSRP or whatever the thing is kicked in so I could get my own fair pharmacare separate from my parents.
Wait, isn't MSRP manufacturer's suggested retail price?
The MSP.
Okay.
Yeah, no, leave the R alone.
Okay.
MSP.
MSP. All right.
Yeah. They you have to have your own number in order to have your own health coverage, and I was still underage at 18 to be, as I was still on my dad's, and he's a contract like a tile setter. He makes a heck of a lot of money, but it's all like self-owned, so he's got to pay his employee and his truck bills and all those things out of his income. So it looks on paper like he makes too much. And so they wouldn't cover it. Yeah.
So this lady just kept like setting you up.
Just did tester boxes. She's just handing them to me every time I would, because they saw me like once every 2 weeks, and then it was once every month or so, and then it was every 3. Then it was 3 months, and then it's like 6 months now. Now it's I think a year because I keep forgetting to call them back. But I love them. They're super sweet. They don't have much information to give me. They just hear me talk really, and even before I found the podcast, they just listened to me talk, and I had no idea what I was talking about.
They're like a grandmother who's like, I don't know what you're saying, but take a piece of candy.
Yeah, my A1C was at 6.2 because I was going up extremely high and then down and then up and then down. And so I was fibbing out the A1C test, and they're like, "You're doing great." I'm like, "I don't feel like I'm doing great."
So tell me, how did you figure out how to manage yourself if they weren't helping you?
Well, at first, I left the hospital. I didn't even know that I should be under 10. They gave me a pamphlet, but it was geared towards type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
And so they made sure that I knew how to inject myself, and they they probably threw the information a little bit like your range is 4 to 10, but they didn't put any kind of emphasis on keeping yourself there. Like, about the complications, but they didn't explain that like the high blood sugar is what's going to cause the complications, not the fact that you have the disease itself. And so I left, and for a few months there, I had no idea what was going on. I dropped in because I had a honeymoon phase. A lot of, but like I had a more so honeymoon phase where I completely dropped down to like using 2 units of basal.
Okay.
And like I didn't need to use bolus insulin for my meals. And so that was like about a year of it. It like a staircase went down. I would drop 2 units of basal like every few days. And then it kind of hovered a bit on the lower end. And then it started climbing back up towards the end of the year, where every few weeks I would kind of need to go a bit more till I kind of settled at the 10. But they didn't, when I was coming out of the hospital, they just made sure I knew how to take the insulin. I had my type 2 pamphlet, and they made sure I had my supplies. So they gave me insulin, and they gave me Dexcoms, enough to supply. And if I needed them, I could call them and say like, "Hey, I'm out." And they'd give me some more. Which I calculated it. It's probably like thousands of dollars that they just
for helping
handed me. Yeah, without me, which is really sweet. They gave me half dose pens.
They understood your situation. They were trying to be helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they gave me half dose pens and told me to get the cartridges when my insulin needs dropped really, really low, so that I would be able to just give myself like half units for food.
That's wonderful. That's lovely, actually. That you found somebody to help you, especially in the situation you were in at your age and with the lack of like family backup for yourself. Yeah,
and nobody is there to watch. Nobody's going to see which is kind of sad to me because my mom was a midwife. And so she is like hard grained to wake up to a pager. So if there could have been anybody to help me, figure out how to take care of myself at night, could be her.
Now you're crying. What the hell?
Yeah.
Jesus. So much crying.
She would wake up to a low alarm at night where I don't.
Oh, I'm so sorry you're finding
yourself.
yourself.
I have to run myself higher than I'd like.
It's because you don't feel like you have anybody to back you up.
I have nobody that would wake up.
What about Excavator Boy?
He won't. He sleeps right through it. You think he can't hear? He's deaf. Come on. The excavators ruined his hearing.
I'm so sorry. Not only did your family not look like a valuable resource to you, but you were dating someone who at the time who broke up with you because you got diabetes?
Nah, well, you know how being high blood sugar changes who you are as a person. And he created a different image in his head about who I was personality-wise rather than realizing that I was going through and some other stuff, you know. We've been together for 3 years, so some crap had happened and couldn't get over it. And he just blocked me on everything, said, I think we should break up, hung up the phone, and didn't say a word. I had to actually go to his friend to get a reason.
Yeah. How long had you been dating? 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years. During high school, it was my high school sweetheart. I lost my virginity that fucker.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
He could have said goodbye nicely.
Oh, yeah. No, I think we should break up.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was like inarticulate and he was like, I appreciate you giving me your virginity and I have to go now.
Yeah, you can like baseline. I'm like, you were a good lay for a bit. Like something to hate him even would have been nice. But yeah.
Is it just the direct cutoff is the worst part? Yeah,
just radio silence.
Yeah, that is terrible. Yeah. I have to admit, you know, I realize it's very common, but like texting a person to break up with them is such a new idea that I can't wrap my head around.
Yeah, it was supposed to see him that day, and so I was on the phone with him, and then it was just over the phone. I'm like, you couldn't even fucking do it in person.
Sucks. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's been a few years now. I had another dipshit ex after that, and then I got my little excavator boy now. Paul, excavator boy. He's not little.
He's not little. Well, I'm glad you found somebody better, and that's a valuable part of your life. But I wanted to give you a second to get away from your sadness about your mom. But
I appreciate it.
But at the same point, I mean, we don't talk about this stuff very often because people don't bring it up, but you feel abandoned, I imagine.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And you got your grandmom, but that's really it as far as family goes.
I love her so much. She calls it diabetes. She tries her best to understand. And she's probably the more of the knowledgeable ones in my family for sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's odd.
Yeah, you really feel like you're on your own, and at a young age too.
Yeah. I was diagnosed at 18, so I just graduated 2 months prior. I was getting my first job. I'd been at that job for like a month and a half or so, and then bam. Yeah.
The thing that your parents represent here, we don't need medicine, that kind of thing. Like growing up for the first number of years, was it a problem? Was it almost like mom and dad are like hippy dippy, it's fine, but then, or was it even a problem?
My mom was a midwife. There's a reason she hates the medical system. Yeah, she delivered 500 babies in her career, if not more. And the amount of toxicity and corruption within the hierarchy and within, you've heard from all the whistleblowers.
Yeah.
They lost faith in the medical system. And so because they've never had to deal with like type 1 diabetes, they didn't really intake it the same way, severity wise.
Do you think they don't understand that without the insulin,
They understand that. Okay. They know that. Like, because that was one of the first things when my dad, when he was upset, I told him, I said, I would have died had I not gone in. I wouldn't be talking to you right now. And that kind of shook them into reality, but they still feel like they can fix me.
Is there really people online who think that ground nuts can... Is that true?
I think. I'm not 100% sure, but there was a book or something that they had read by a physician who...
I'm going to look.
Please do. I'm curious. It was like a mixed diet, but nuts were a primary aspect of it.
I don't know how to figure this out. Like, what do I Google? Like, cure type 1?
I don't even know, man, because, you'll get everything, including the one guy that told me a hyperbaric chamber would work. But, I have to do it for a month, and it costs $6,700.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, no, thanks.
I can't find the myth that ground nuts cure anything, but Jesus. Also, the hyperbaric that's a cult thing. Like, hey, you want the protection of us? You just have to, your daughter needs to sleep with the guy and it'll all be fine. You know what I mean? We'll let you right in. Like, for only $6,700, we'll put you in a hyperbaric chamber, make this whole thing go away.
Oh, cure it all.
Wow. Where did you meet a person who told you that?
At work. I was one of my customers because I saw my insulin pump.
And he's like, hey, if you have $6,700, I can save you.
Pretty much, yeah.
How many loonies is that, by the way?
I've gotten a couple of the religious nuts too that come like I One, it just kind of scared me, the intensity in his eyes. He goes, "I will pray for you." He starts praying and just to God in front of me and like holds my hand. And I'm just sitting there and the intensity in his eyes. I did not want to be subjected to this, but thank you.
Oh, appreciate your help.
Yeah.
Here's your receipt.
Well, to be fair, though, this job did bring me you. I had a wonderful customer. I work in the auto parts department.
Mm-hmm.
I was selling this guy a battery, and I don't know if you noticed my Dexcom or my bracelet, but he said, "My girlfriend's type 1. She's in the car. Do you want me to go get her?" I'm like, sure.
Yeah, go hustle her up. Let's see what's going on.
So she comes down, she comes back in, and I'm like, "Oh, no way." And we had a little conversation, and she gave me sugar surfing and your podcast.
Oh.
And I've written it on my arm. And it was maybe a day or two later, I had seen the writing on my arm was nearly faded. And I'm like, "Oh, I should write this down before it fades away fully." And so I started listening to your episodes. And I don't remember which one was the first one I found. It really stuck to me. One of the first ones that I listened to was the one where you're explaining how you talked a lady through feeding her son food when he was high, but giving him the extra meal for the correction as well as the meal and catching it at the right time. And I nearly cried because I was like, no one had explained to me that I could do this or things like this. And just the fact that I'd found so much information at the time, it was like 1,000 episodes, I think.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I was like, there's so much information. I finally feel like I have a direction to go. Because beforehand, I really didn't understand much. Like I said, like they didn't explain that it was the high blood sugars that cause all the complications, not just the fact that you had diabetes itself.
Yeah. And
they didn't really give me methods. I went to my doctor when I was first few months in, and I said, "Hey, what do I do?"
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Well, it's trial and error. I don't really have a regime for you. You're going to have to figure it out." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I feel even more alone."
Is it okay if I listen to a guy with a podcast? Is that fine?
Yeah.
Like, can
I've brought that up to them now. Since then, I'm like, I listened to a podcast. He's fucking phenomenal. Deal with it.
You're very nice. I just had a kid, like, you know what I mean? And then we were like, that went well. Let's make another one. And and it came out, and we were like, we have 2 kids. And then a couple years later, we were like, how come this one seems like it's dying?
Oh gosh.
Then we went to a hospital, and they were like, your daughter has type 1 diabetes. And we were just wherever one of you has been. Like, I didn't know what we were doing, rudimentary direction, sometimes no direction at all. And, the first months were terrible. Arden had a seizure in the first handful of months. I was just following what the doctor said to do.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start thinking, God, this is it. Like, she's 2, like she's going to have seizures. Like, like we can't eat lunch.
Yeah.
Like everything is scary, and you're not sleeping all of a sudden because you're like constantly like this insulin's going to like either save her or kill her.
Yeah.
Every time. Like,
every time.
You know what I mean?
This is a constant thing.
Like, and that's the life. And then I got desperate, and I thought like I'll write a blog about it, back right at the beginning when blogs were like even a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just was like, I'll beg people to like donate to things, basically. Like I'll if I can explain to them what this really is like, maybe they'll put a donation into this thing, and maybe somebody smarter than me will like figure out something, is kind of how it happened. Then that's where community starts, right? Like looking back on it, I always kind of missed that piece of it, but like I met other bloggers.
Yeah.
Right. And then they tell stories about things. Like there's this lovely woman who I haven't seen in a decade, probably, named Lorraine. And like, she's the reason I know about Apidra, for example. Right. I was like writing a blog about how like Arden's blood sugar was like bouncing all over the place. And she said, "Have you tried Apidra?" And I was like, "I don't know what that is." I'm like, "I have insulin. I have Novolog here."
Oh, yeah.
And she goes, "Novolog's not insulin. It's a kind of insulin." And I was like, "Oh, okay." There's like more, like, because in my mind, I was in the hospital and someone reached out with a vial and went, "This is insulin." I was like, "All right, this is insulin.
This is insulin."
Yeah. I'll remember that,
Yeah.
And, I remember the first time that somebody mentioned CGM was in a doctor's office. And, I've probably told that story a bunch of times. But, my daughter's nurse practitioner tells me a story about like, there's these things now, you wear them and you can see your blood sugars in like almost real time. And I have this patient, and she starts telling me about this kid who's probably like, I don't know, 17 in the story, if I remember right. And he got one and was super excited because he couldn't eat M&Ms without his blood sugar going up, and he thought he could figure it out. And then she just told me, like, he did it a bunch of days in a row. He put in the insulin, ate the M&Ms like normal, watched what happened. The next day, he changed the amount of time before he put in, he put in the insulin. And he did this a few days in a row, ate a bunch of M&Ms. And one day figured out the timing and the amount that kept the M&Ms from causing him a problem, either a spike high or a low later. And I just thought, like, I bet I could do that with everything.
Yeah. That's why whenever I see them and they still say like, hey, you shouldn't eat that because that's just, you don't want that high blood sugar. You shouldn't eat that. Like, but it's possible. It's all timing and amount. Scott's done it. You can do it.
And see, and then so like, I go along and I make these, like, you start figuring things out. And then, like I said, like people would come on the show, and like, even you brought up sugar surfing. Like Dr. Ponder came on the podcast like very early on. Yeah. And I remember when I was talking to him, I might have said it out loud. I haven't listened to it in a really long time, but I remember thinking at the very least, oh, this guy calls this thing something, but I have a system too. I didn't realize I had a system. Like I knew there were these things. I was like, if I do these things, generally speaking, it works out for me. And then eventually I made those into the Pro Tip series.
Yeah. Those are amazing. There's so many people are so thankful that you created that series.
Oh, I'm so glad. And so you're just like, okay, like, well, that worked. And then you talk about it. And then more people, then the podcast gets super popular. And then people come on and they tell their stories. And then like we did a half an hour ago, I'm like, well, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but this lady told me this thing. And I just feel like Lorraine saying like, hey, have you tried a Pedra? Like, so I'm like, I don't know if a GLP is going to help you or not, but here's something somebody else told me. Like, I don't even know if it's worth giving it a shot, but at least you know about it, and then you can decide for yourself, right?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a bit, and that was one of the things I actually wanted to ask you. Is like, even though I have issues with appetite, is it still? Would it maybe be because I have I'll have sensitivity points where I'm on extremely low, like that's when it's on 9 units a day total. And then some of the days that are really extreme around like my luteal phase, I'll go up to like 20, 25 units an hour and I'm still high and can't bring it down.
Yeah.
And just the amount of jumping it does with my menstrual cycle and the hormone changes, and with it being so irregular with everything, it's a nightmare to figure out when something's going to be too much or if I need to up it by like 4 times the amount.
Like maybe you don't even need the new kind of more modern injectables. There's pills, GLPs that have been out for years. Like who knows? Like maybe you should try metformin. I don't know. But like you shouldn't just sit around being in pain all the time and, having horrible, like, having your horrible period poops and running to the potty all the time. It's not fun.
They're a nightmare. No, nobody likes those.
No, nobody likes period poops. There's a kid's book you're never going to see.
Definitely not. Mom went to the bathroom again. We don't talk about it.
We don't talk about what happened. I got my period, and now all I know is I'm not sure what's going to happen when I get to the potty. Listen, I love women, and there are women in my house in my life, and I watch it with them constantly. So it's very unfair. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I'm sure it gets to be quite the handful when you have the girls sync too. I love the Bluetooth uteruses. I'm
just going to tell you right now, boys don't have problems like that. So Yeah, it's just like whatever. But no, you feel bad when you see it happening, or my wife's like wakes up in the morning and I'm like, I thought you were going in the office. She goes, I'm going to work from home today. And I'm like, oh, okay. I hope you're okay.
Just push the chocolate slowly towards her. Peace offering.
Here you go. Feel better. Don't bite me.
I'll be in the other room, please. Yeah. My new kitten keeps biting me everywhere.
You have a new kitten? What is the kitten's name?
Milo.
Not Scott? Okay.
No, I know. I'm sorry. He's an orange kitten, and I watched Milo and Otis a lot when I was younger, so I had to name him Milo.
Makes sense. Well, I'm, again, just very happy that any of this helped you or has helped anybody. I think that's awesome. Absolutely.
You have done so much for the community. I know you don't like to take in the compliments very often, but you've saved lives, legitimately, and you've saved complications in future. So many. I hope so. I'm going to take it today because I can use it today. So thank you. Well, there you go. Yeah. I wanted to ask if anybody had ever mentioned to you the fact that, like, okay, because we are diabetic, we have to pee more often, right? Because the liver is trying to filter out the high blood sugar. If you're high blood sugar, you got to pee more often. Mm-hmm. I have noticed that if I'm fighting with a high blood sugar, now this might just be because I'm on lower sensitivity. If I have to go to the washroom and I don't go pee and I'm fighting with this high blood sugar, I'm just pushing insulin in every like 45, 50 minutes because I'm on Fiasp. So it's much quicker acting. So I don't have to worry about stacking as much.
Right.
If I don't pee, it'll stay higher. As soon as I go to the washroom, it starts going down. As soon as I go to the washroom. It's so annoying because if I'm sitting somewhere where I can't use the washroom and I'm watching the number climb, I know I'm not going to be able to bring it down as quickly as if I'm able to go and use the washroom.
So is the question in a type 1, does the extra glucose in the urine during high blood sugars impact the glucose in the bloodstream? Is that the question?
I guess, because I wonder like if maybe there's, think of it like an extra fuel tank. Once you've drained the fuel tank, then there's more room for the liver to push extra blood in there. So you're able to dilute it out of the bloodstream quicker.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, there's definitely things like I've seen high blood sugars with constipation. And then when the poopy happens, the blood sugars start to drop.
Okay.
That I've seen. And
Interesting.
Again, I didn't go to college. But the way it always occurred to me was that there's some matter inside of you. It's got to be impacting
maybe
glucose. I don't know. I could be 100%, like, trust me, I could be wrong. But what I can say for sure is that I have seen constipation, high blood sugars, go to the bathroom, blood sugars begin to fall almost immediately.
Okay. Yeah, because I see that with urination. And I feel like maybe there's something else going on in like my uterus bladder area maybe something to do with the bicornuate uterus, but I feel like I always have to I always have to pee, even if my blood sugar is within range. Like it lessens, thankfully. Like if I'm able to have a good day, I have noticed I'm able to hold it in for a lot longer. But like as soon as my blood sugars go out of range, I am peeing every 30 minutes.
So obviously a person with diabetes gets spillage into their urine, right? Because you said, your kidneys are like, let's try to get rid of this glucose somehow.
Yeah.
But does that glucose inside of the urine impact like your actual blood sugar? I don't know. And weird. Probably not. Like it's not connected to your bloodstream. So
I wonder if it's like an adrenaline thing, maybe even.
I don't know. All I can tell you,
because like the adrenaline of holding it in and then it keeps it going up and then maybe.
I look back on my early life with my buddy Mike, who's passed on and had type 1.
I've heard you mention him.
And he, I obviously with hindsight had high blood sugars a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my like enduring memories of Mike is that if we went to a washroom together in public, there was part of you, oddly enough, you mentioned your father being a tile cutter. There was part of you that thought he was going to piss right through the urinal, right through the wall and outside.
Oh, the force.
Yeah, from the force.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Oh, are we going to call this episode Tile Cutter? Maybe. Maybe. Canadian Tile Cutter? Maybe. We'll think about it. But yeah, like I look back now and I think, he ended up on dialysis.
Yeah.
And I always thought, like I've thought in hindsight, like, geez, like that all that urine, that high pressure, peeing all the time. Back then I didn't understand what that meant. And he certainly didn't. He just thought he was a guy who peed hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. No internet, nobody to ask, etc. And it blew his kidneys blew out. He was on dialysis for years before he passed away.
Yeah. Maybe that's what happened to my grandpa because he had type 2 diabetes and I know he pissed like a racehorse. You could hear him from the other room.
Mm.
Yeah. No, that maybe.
That was I'm not laughing at your grandfather peeing hard. I'm laughing at a meme I saw recently that said, why can I hear my boyfriend peeing from every room in the house? And I thought, oh God, does that happen to every girl?
It's like a megaphone.
But the real thought here is like, stability, lower your variability, keep your blood sugar as in range as possible. Take that pressure off your kidneys. Yeah.
My biggest thing that I'm proud of being able to do at least is I don't tend to sit anywhere above 15 for lengths of time. Like I don't have it refined too much because, well, the first few years here, I was kind of flying blind. And then I found the podcast and I've been finding so much helpful information. I've already been noticing a flatter line and able to handle foods more nicely. My high on like my Dexcom reading for the clarity, the high number is 15, and I'm like 1% above that at all times. Okay. Pretty much.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I do not like sitting and seeing an 18 at all. I will smash as much insulin as I can on there.
You've spent time figuring out how to help yourself. You're doing well with that. You've, emancipated yourself to some degree, and you're living on your own. Or with your grandmother, right?
With my boyfriend.
With your boyfriend. Okay.
Yeah.
How have you thought about how to structure the next decade of your life, for example, so that you can take care of your health and, be happy and build a life at the same time?
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for like Omnipod 5 to hit Canada. We're still waiting for that. Then I can have an algorithm. Maybe I'll get some better sleep. I kind of wanted to be a CDE, but I feel like I have a lot of interest in diabetes. Of course, I do a lot of personal research and those kind of things. But if I made it my job, my career, I feel like I would maybe even lose interest in taking care of myself. So I don't want to risk it. Mm-hmm. So I've always wanted to be a vet, but there's a lot of issues in the vet area. So I haven't really figured out what I want to do yet, but I do want to take like a biology course in university to try to get back into school because, I was going to take a gap year, but then got diagnosed and I didn't feel safe enough to move like out city-wise farther away from the little bit of help I had in the main town.
Right.
So I have plans to either trades because I am in auto parts and I have a high interest in auto body. And I do live in one of the very popular muscle car areas of Canada. Mm-hmm. And so there's people here that love their gassers and they're not going to change that. So there'll always be work. And with diabetes wise, I'm really hoping that just over time, I'm learning kind of what's going on. I hope the GLP might be something I could try. However, I do feel like I'll start to see less and less sensitivity slowly as like the LADA kind of settles into normal type 1, I guess. I'm not really planning on having kids in the near future, so I don't have to deal with that extra stuff as well. Yeah. So mostly just figuring out what works for me. And I can't do the whole like low carb diet. I have a hard enough time eating anyways. I've seen it around and I'm not diagnosed, so I don't really want to say it, but like kind of an ARFID style where it's like food avoidant. If I'm not hungry, I won't eat. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't seem like it tastes like, I won't be able to physically chew it. Like I'll gag and I'll feel nauseous if it's something that doesn't taste good or I'm not craving.
Has this been prior to diabetes or since?
Not prior to diabetes.
You've had this forever.
Yeah, I actually lost. The reason I didn't really notice much on the losing weight when I was diagnosed is because a year previous, during COVID, I had lost like 20 pounds from just drinking tea. I joked. I said I was keeping my blood sugar steady and from going low by drinking tea throughout the day.
That's what you thought was happening?
Yeah, I didn't know what would come.
You're like, obviously I'm handling this whole thing with tea. Yeah, it works. You all should try it. I'm going to start a blog.
I wasn't eating much. So I'm like, at least I'll drink the tea so that, because this was like way before diagnosis. I'm like, so I don't get shaky and stuff and I won't have any low blood sugar. I'm still eating something. Mm-hmm. And the tea, with a bunch of sugar, like a quarter cup of sugar. Oh, I was like sugar whore when it comes to my tea beforehand.
I wonder if your low ferritin has any impact on...
I also think I have low sodium because I'm constantly craving salt. And every time I've had my tests done, the sodium number is like right on the lower end.
Do you chew ice?
No, I don't chew ice.
Low. It's never been that low where you're like chewing ice. Okay.
No.
I just wonder if can low ferritin impact desire to eat?
I wonder as well. Maybe it does.
What's the word? How come I can't think of the word?
In appetite?
Yeah, thank you. Jesus
Christ. Of course.
I'm talking about so many things, thinking about so many things that I'm sitting here thinking.
That's my brain functions really quickly. I like that episode you had with that lady the other day, or I listened to it the other day, where her brain works really quickly. So everybody talking seems slow to her. And so she has to like slow herself down and try not. And so I just related a bit to that. So I'm always speaking too quickly for people to hear me.
I have a little bit of feedback here. Don't know if it's right, but okay. Low ferritin levels can impact appetite.
Oh.
Iron is an essential mineral that plays a vital role in many bodily functions, including oxygen transport, energy production, and maintaining normal metabolism. When ferritin levels are low due to iron deficiency, several factors can contribute to changes in appetite. Reduced energy, levels of fatigue, altered taste and smell, hormonal imbalances, and...
Sounds like every one of those marks is accurate.
Gastrointestinal symptoms, emotional impact like feeling fatigued or dizzy, etc.
Yeah.
So you're looking for unintentional weight loss, lack of motivation to cook or prepare meals, difficult swallowing or discomfort when eating.
I feel a bit called out now.
Decreased interest in food or eating smaller portions than usual.
I feel really called out.
Shaka Khan. We've done it.
Not a medical
Not a doctor. Almost couldn't get through high school. Fell asleep. Missed 53 days of my senior year of high school. Just want to say that
Look at you now.
All right. Well, this is it. Let's get your iron up.
Okay.
And either do it. The problem is, I know somebody that this happened to.
Yeah.
In the Great White North up there.
Oh, yeah.
And they went to the doctor and they gave him an appointment like a year out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we got to get you to that clinic and tell them all this and say, look, I just want you to jack up my ferritin to see if I feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once it's up, we'll test it again. When you watch it fall and see that I'm eating well and it's not keeping my ferritin up, then maybe you'll give me the GLP to try to help with that and help me dose it in a way that can keep up my appetite, but have some sort of an impact on this PCOS stuff. And Bob's your uncle. We're all done.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. I definitely have to get to that clinic out there in Verna.
How often do I get to say Bob's your uncle and nobody says, what are you talking about? Not that often. You knew what I meant.
I know. It's like a common phrase up here.
I know it is because I make a podcast. So I learn all kinds of useless.
I should have known.
Yeah, that's how I learned that from y'all.
From us all.
Yeah,
yes.
You stabbers.
I was a stabber.
That's something we talked about before we started recording, so it's completely out of context now. But
oh, yeah, I suppose so, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, that was the most Canadian thing you've done since we've been... Oh, yeah, I suppose so, hey?
Oh, really cold out now.
Do you know who Bob and Doug McKenzie are?
Yes, I do. They play as the Moose and Brother Bear.
How? Oh, that's how you know who they are?
Well, I am a early 2000s baby.
That's awesome. I brought it up to a Canadian once. They'd never seen the movie Strange Brew.
I'm disappointed.
I was too.
So disappointed.
I was like, what kind of a Canadian are you?
Right? My uncle, before he passed, like that was one of his favorite. Like he'd sit down and just watch them for hours.
Isn't that funny?
I love those guys. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. All right. What have we not talked about that we should have? Also, you and I should probably have our own podcast together.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I would love to come on again in the future as I've figured out more and more things, if possible. Because, yeah.
Talking to you, well, that's very possible. I really enjoyed this. But talking to you is the way I imagine talking to Arden on the podcast is going to be, but it never is. She's like, I'll do it. Fine. Let's go.
Aw.
Arden and I have been recording I Don't Understand episodes.
You have? Oh, nice. Because I heard the other ones with Jenny that you just recently published. Yeah, and I love them.
Oh, good. Jenny's and mine are just like diabetes related stuff where we're like, I don't understand why this is like this. Arden's and mine have nothing to do with diabetes. Because I said, can we throw in some diabetes stuff? And she's like, not if you want to talk to me. And I'm like, okay. So we've been doing we have this long list of things. So where this idea came from was that Arden would say stuff to us like, I don't understand how money works. And we'd be like, what? And so one day I'm like, start writing these down. And she's like, what? I'm like, start a note.
Got some content here.
Yeah, I'm like, start a note in your phone. Every time you think you don't understand something, just go into that note and be like, I don't understand how Wi-Fi works, which by the way is on her list.
Is it? Oh, okay. You'll figure out what my parents are so scared about.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Eh? And so you said a boat a minute ago. And so
I knew this would happen.
We built this. Yeah, it's really coming out as you get more comfortable. It's fantastic. We built this long ass list of things that it's an embarrassing list. She's like, I should not tell people I don't understand these things. And I'm like, no, it's going to be fun. So we jumped on the other day for the first time to do it remotely because she's at college. So I sent her off to college with a microphone. And I'm like, we're going to record every Tuesday at 3 p.m. And so we jumped on and she's like, Dad, I'm exhausted. My period's late. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, And then she just like the time came up and I'm sitting on the link. She's not there. And I text her. I go, hey. And she goes, hey, what's up? And I'm like, we're supposed to be recording now. And she goes, oh, hold on. How do I get on this link? I'm like, you're kidding me. I'm like, it's in your email. Click on it. She goes, I'm not 150. I don't look at my email.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, okay. So she jumps on. I get her set up with the microphone and everything. And then we start like bickering and talking and everything and just like that. And I'm like, all right, like, what are we going to do off this list? And I started reading stuff off the list. She's like, Dad, I don't know. I'm so tired. And she's like, my period won't come. And like, I just want my period to come. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, right. And she goes, I got homework to do. And I'm like, just pick something off this goddamn list. And I'm like, and they're all like gems. And I'm like spinning them out. And she's like, I don't know. And then we just pivoted. And I was like, you know what? I don't understand. And she goes, what? I'm like, the idea of being judgmental. Like it's so, and like, it's so like, I don't think of it the way I think other people think of it. And so we started talking about that. She called me out on some things. And so we went over judgmental because between you and I don't think that me assessing what's happening around me and slotting those assessments against what I've seen historically constitutes me being judgmental. I think I'm just witnessing things and observing and putting the spot. And I made the point to her that I don't think it becomes judgmental until you inflict it upon the person who you're noticing. Mm-hmm. And she goes, dude, you're so judgmental. Stop it. I was like, and I'm like, I really don't think I am. I'm like, I'm not cruel to people. I would never like witness something and then go up to them and go like, oh my God.
There's no malice.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, that's what we talked about.
Yeah.
It's an episode that will 1,000,000% make me look like an asshole for being so honest. But like,
I'm going to love to hear it.
Great. I think people feel like that. Like we all notice shit, but it's not till you run up to somebody and you're like, yo, did you know you're this or that? Like, then it's judgmental, right?
Yeah. But so anyway. Start putting malice into negative connotations to their
anyway, that'll all be coming up on the podcast at some point. And I think you and I should do a couple of those together is what I'm saying.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
I think that's where the podcast is going to go eventually. It's just going to be people coming on going, you know, I don't understand this. And then we just start talking. Start
delving into it. Yeah. Well, hey, it's very informative and it just keeps building upon, you can't, like you said before in other episodes, you can't say the same things over and over again and expect new people to come in and want to listen. You got to keep it interesting.
Yeah, I love it when people are like, you know, you don't talk about diabetes much in your diabetes podcast. And I was like, yeah, there are diabetes podcasts that do that. No one listens to them.
Yeah, exactly. It's too hyper focused. You have to bring in the other stuff to kind of, balance it out. Like I went snowmobiling on the mountain and I figured out for the first time that altitude is not accurate to the Dexcom readings. In fact, I think my snow pants had actually pulled off the Dexcom. I was stuck on, because we have these beautiful, my future father-in-law there, he's got these beautiful like 2018 Polaris RMK 800 mountain bike snowmobiles, and so they will go up a wall if you put them there. Mm-hmm. I got stuck, of course, and I was fighting to get it out, and I could feel my blood sugar was going down, but I looked at my Dexcoms to 10. I could feel it. I could feel that I was going low, and so I tested, and by the time, because I should have tested instantly, but I hopped back on the snowmobile and rode another 2 minutes just to the very top of the mountain, where it was windier and colder, and then tested and found I was at 3.3. And I had given myself insulin to try to correct that 10 that I'd seen earlier. So I was coming down.
First of all, your blood sugar was obviously falling, but I've had conversations with people where they say, I swear to God, altitude really impacts my blood sugar.
It sure does. That's where I noticed it for sure, because I just started going down. And then because of how cold it was, my one touch meter wasn't reading. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting there. I've got 5 different people huddled around me. They're handing me full sugar sodas, chocolate bars, this, that. This is like the family. So it's my boyfriend was there, my boyfriend's brother, his dad, and their landlord, which is essentially an adoptive grandfather for everybody. And they were all huddled around me, trying to keep me warm and trying to get my meter warm enough so that I could test my blood sugar again. Charles gave me his gloves, and it was just super sweet because I have a little bit of support here and there. As much as they might not understand, they knew then I needed sugar. And Mike knows I've got my Baqsimi in my bag, so anything were to happen, he would be able to apply it, though I don't think he's at all interested in ever doing that.
Well, no one is.
Do it if need be.
Not until you get into the fight and you're like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh, now I got to do it.
I guess we're going to do it. what you said earlier is just really, it's accurate. Like if you sat down, you're like, I'm going to make a podcast episode today, and it's going to be about altitude and how it impacts blood sugar. And then I'm going to make the title, Altitude Impacts Type 1 Diabetes. You know, no one is going to be like, oh, I can't wait to flip that on and find out more.
Yeah.
You know, like you got to have a conversation with somebody, get to know them, let them take the
that's
story.
Where you get,
And it comes up where
I think
it comes
that's what works so well with your podcast and why you've become so successful is because you're not trying to force it upon anybody. You just leave it there so that people can come and find it, and curious cats will come and find it.
Really is my goal.
Yeah.
Just let people talk, and I'll babble on about things I've noticed, and you'll either find something in it that's valuable for you or you won't, but there's no pressure, right? Like the podcast doesn't cost you anything.
Exactly. There's no timeline.
No one's forcing you to listen to it. There's no timeline. You don't have to do anything. Like it's got ads, but you don't click on the links for the ads, like whatever. I try to say in the ads, like, look, I appreciate all of you who are trying to support the podcast. Like don't buy this stuff if you don't really want it. You know what I mean? Like it's here. These people pay to put ads in the podcast. Click on them if you want to, but like there's no pressure there even.
Yeah.
You know, like just do your thing. Like and take, hopefully there's something here. You just like you're spreading flowers around, and hopefully people come by and find them valuable.
Make a little bouquet.
Yeah. Listen, you make mistakes sometimes. And the same thing, like, look, I misspoke or I said something that wasn't right. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking a lot here. I'm doing my best, you know? Anyway, I think net positive times 1,000.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you get 2 more chameleons, by the way?
Shh. What are you doing? You trying to make me sound like a weirdo on the internet?
Don't worry. I have 2 leopard geckos, and you saw my crested gecko last night on the page.
All right. So here's what happened. And then we're going to stop because Rob tells me these are too long.
Aw.
We had a whole conversation in the car the other day. He's like, I think 50 minutes is the sweet spot. I'm like, dude, I can't get anything done in 50 minutes. What are we talking about? So long story short, my entire life, I wanted a chameleon. I never told one person. Last Christmas, a couple days before Christmas, we were all standing around in the kitchen, and I just kind of as a conversation starter said, tell me something, like my whole family was there. I was like, tell me something you've like, you know, always wanted to do that you've never done. And everybody went around the room. It got back to me, and I just shocked everybody by saying something that they had never heard before. Like I've been married to my wife like nearly 30 years. I've got kids that are in their 20s. I've never said this out loud.
Oh my goodness.
I said, I'd really like to keep a chameleon one day. And everyone was like, what? What?
You're what? He what?
Hold on a second. What'd he say?
This one wants a what?
Yeah. Hold on. What was the, a kama? And I'm like, yeah. And I started talking about like, I find them very relaxing.
They are. They force you to move slower and kind of breathe and think. You move fast, you could hurt them.
Even while you and I are talking, I can see one of them just moving so slowly through his enclosure, right? And it's very relaxing. And plus, they're difficult to keep. So then the question was like, why have you never done this before? Like, you know, like we're not wealthy, but we could put a cage together and throw a chameleon in it. Why would you never have done it? And I said, their care is incredibly difficult. And that caregivers thing that you guys get off me from the podcast, like it extends to everything. I don't want to let anything down, probably because my parents got
big
divorced.
Mama bear.
Yeah, my
Absolutely,
parents are divorced. Scott. Like, you know, there's probably reasons. But like, I don't want to let anything down. And the next day, my wife sends me off right before Christmas with a list of things to do. And one of them is to like whip through a pet store and buy like stocking stuffer stuff for our dogs. And I'm in there, and as I'm walking out with my handful, and I'm also a boy, so I'm irritated that I'm buying stocking stuffers for dogs. They don't care. There's already a basket of toys. We can just throw them back out on the floor. You know what I mean? But my wife's like, no, they need something to open. I'm like, they're dogs. I'm pretty sure they don't, but whatever. And so like I'm walking out of the pet store, and I hear this, and I look over, and there's this little baby chameleon like walked past, and it was like shocked by me, and it was like, hey, what the buddy? And so I got home, and I said to my wife, I was like, craziest goddamn thing. I have never in my life seen a chameleon in a pet store.
But there was one right there after talking about it.
2 seconds, I mention it in passing. I do not bring it up again. I didn't say, y'all should go buy it for me. I didn't say anything like that, right? So then Christmas morning comes, and we're all done with our gifts, and the dogs have opened up their squeaky toys. And
of course.
And Arden goes, hey, there's one more gift for you, but you got to come up to my room for it. And I was like, what the hell? So we all get up and start moving to her room. because when my wife started moving, I was like, something's happening, because this is the point in the morning she wasn't going to get up again, you know? And I was like, why is and I go up, and as they're opening the door, I think to myself, oh my God, it's going to be a chameleon.
Oh, you do?
Don't be a chameleon. I don't know how to take care of a chameleon. The thing's going to die in 5 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And I open the door, and they're like, we got a chameleon. And I was like, and I went, like, I'm a dad. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. This is awesome. The voice in my head is like, you get it.
Motherfuckers. Why did you do this?
But I'm like, that's so nice. Thank you. But I just realized in that moment, I'm like, I'm going to have to now give over. And it ended up being a solid month of like YouTube videos just and
delving
like
right
just
into it.
trying to figure everything out, which by the way,
not everybody would do that. It's so sweet that you check out like that.
I'm going to kill this chameleon. I can't do that.
Yeah.
By the way, that's where, and I always hope the guy hears it one day, I found the chameleon equivalent of me.
Oh dear.
It was the
Did you?
strangest goddamn thing. Like there he is, like with like a lot of the basic ways that I think of talking to people. He's doing the same thing and spreading, like trying his best to spread good information. And he's even got like people who don't like the way he does it. And like, and I'm like, oh my God.
So this is exactly the same.
It's like I'm looking into like a mirror, and instead of me looking back, it's a guy who's like, I'm saying all the same things about chameleons and having all the same experiences about chameleons that you're having in diabetes. I'm like, oh, that's so bizarre, you know? But anyway, I learned how to take care of the chameleon. She is the most well-pampered $75 pet store chameleon you've ever seen in your life. Like, she's living a better life than we are. And
I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, doing great. But it is not long after that I think, this is not the kind of chameleon I wanted.
Oh, no. Oh, no. So that's why. Oh.
So I was like, okay, no big deal, right? Like, she's going to live like 6-7 years and I'll get another one. Like, and then one day I was like, yeah, I'm 52. 7 years from now, I'm going to be 59. Am I going to really buy a chameleon when I'm 59? And I was like, probably not. And I just relegated myself to the idea that I just, like, maybe that's not going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
But I did look around in the meantime, and I found this breeder in California who breeds the kinds of chameleons that I wanted. And his stuff is like, man, his animals are really wonderful, you know?
Oh, good to hear.
And he has like this success breeding them where it's not a thing that people do well breeding, right? Because I think these eggs take almost 2 years to actually gestate and to hatch. And whatnot.
Wow.
Like this real, like the whole thing. Like you have to like, it's a whole thing. And he has a lot of success with it. So I bookmark his site and I'm like, well, when I'm ready, I'm going to go figure this out. And then I look at his site one day because it pops up in front of me, and because I followed it on Facebook. And he's like, well, here's my last hatchlings. So sad to say, I don't think I'm going to be breeding these chameleons anymore.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, you motherfucker. And I was like, so
now I have to.
So now I'm sitting in this chair thinking, am I going to buy another chameleon? Because I'm an adult and that seems ridiculous.
But you're an adult and you can buy another chameleon.
I'm going to do it. Like, so anyway, so I have this again, literally like a pet store veiled chameleon. She's so nasty. Like, she won't let me anywhere near her. Like, she's just like, I've tried to explain to her that this great life she's living is because of me, and she could maybe
because
just not.
You love her and you care about her and not to attack you.
She don't seem to care about that. Also, this is how my wife treats me too. So I'm used to it. And then I have a Parsons chameleon.
Oh.
Which will live 12 to 15 years and grow up to maybe as much as 24 inches long.
Oh, cool. Yeah, my geckos will live to be about 15 to 20 years long as well. I've got one that was supposed to be incubated a female. Turned out he was a male. And not only that, he's a giant leopard gecko. So he's 30 grams heavier than a normal gecko is. And
that's a male. Does that get up to almost a foot long?
He's not quite a foot long, but I brought him to the vet clinic because he had a hemipenis prolapse. And so they had to go and
pop it back in.
Yeah. And
you
they
feel
said this is the biggest leopard gecko we've ever seen. I had to do it myself, actually.
Oh.
A few weeks afterwards, he did it again. And so because I had seen what they did, I'm like, I'm not going to spend another $375. I gave him a soak and I did what they did. And he was okay. And he hasn't had it happen again. That was maybe a year ago.
Nice. But he's the biggest leopard gecko they ever saw.
The biggest leopard gecko they've ever seen. I mean, he's that big boy. I got him a 40-gallon tank, even though the 20 is generally the normal size for them. I'm like, no, we're going big.
My niece just rescued a leopard gecko.
They are so sweet.
Yeah.
They're one of the best temperaments. And you know what? They poop in a corner. They are one of the cleanest, if not the cleanest reptile you could own, because they pick one corner and they will poop in that corner.
I have bioactive setups for my chameleons, so they poop on the ground, and then
it just gets kind of taken in.
At night, the isopods and the springtails come along and eat it up.
Cool. Okay, so that's what I was talking with the lady on the Facebook page last night. I want to do a bioactive tank for my Cresta gecko because I didn't know you could have some of my favorite plants there inside the tanks.
Yeah, it's fun. It's actually nice because I have like a little arboretum in here with me, and it happens to have things crawling through it. So anyway, so what ended up happening for the third one, just so you understand.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is that like I became really interested in it and I paid more attention. And it turns out I live very close to one of two guys in the country that breeds these tiny little carpet chameleons. Now they only live like 2 or 3 years. They have a much shorter life, but they also require a much smaller enclosure, which I have space for. So I was like, I'm going to get a carpet chameleon too. So
how big are they?
She's probably like 7 inches long, like tip of her tail to her snout right now, but her body's going to get bigger, but I don't think her overall, like, she's tiny. And
she's probably around the size of Apollo then.
She's super colorful and like growing great and everything. But I come in here in the morning, I feed them, and like while I'm recording or working, I just like, I don't know, like he's looking at me right now. Like he's walking across the branch and he's looking at me like, are you going to kill me? I'll hold really still for a second to be sure you're not going to kill me.
Oh my goodness.
That's how they live their whole life. They just just
in fear.
Yeah. It's why they want to be up high, you know? So then he's like, all right, nothing's going to kill me. Then he'll take a couple more steps.
I love their little mittens as they grab around things.
Yeah.
They're so cute.
Well, they're cute on the little one. The big one like makes
scary.
He's strong. He could grow to 500 grams.
Oh my.
Yeah. So he's 300 now and he's a year old.
Oh, mine's 130 Alaska. He's the big boy. Yeah. And that's like my biggest reptile.
Yeah, you'd be stunned by this. He looks like a dinosaur.
Oh my goodness. My brother had a blue-tongued skink. Oh, that was fucking cool.
Okay. So,
she passed away, unfortunately.
So I had to stop looking online at things. Because
the crocodile skinks are expensive, but they're my favorite skink.
Yeah, because I saw one day, I'm like, these crocodile skinks are so cool.
They look like Smaug.
I know. You can't like house things together. Like you can't. You can't.
Unfortunately.
And so if you could, then I know I'd have like
set in salt, like a fish tank. You just huge one, side of the wall of the room, good to go.
Yeah, but anyway, this is it for me. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. Three's enough.
Yeah. It's pretty embarrassing. I will take a pic.
More chameleons than kids.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. But I'll take a photo of this enclosure for you and send it to you when we get off so you can see it. So
I would love that.
Listen, she's great, the veiled, and I do love her because she runs all over the place and she has a terrible attitude. So it's fun, but But he's just like, he's the one I wanted. Like when I was a kid, this is the chameleon I imagined.
That was your dream chameleon.
Having, or I wouldn't have, they didn't know that. And anyway, I should end this story by saying it's like one of the nicest things anyone's ever done for me. Was like,
that was really sweet.
Yeah, go get that. But I'm a rep. I don't think I could do a snake. I have to be perfectly honest.
No, I mean, I love snakes, but my mom's terrified of snakes. So that was kind of never an option. And then I love my little critters that can walk on feet. And kind of travel a bit easier and not get themselves stuck in places. Yeah,
I do have to admit, though, and they're very common pets, but people who have bearded dragons.
My brother, he's had 2 so far. They're really common, but they're more upkeep than people realize.
Yeah, the one thing about the chameleons that you wouldn't know until you dig completely deep into everything they need is that everything they need, almost with the exception of food, you can automate.
Oh.
So, like, basically what happens here, using the Parsons as an example, there's a misting system in his cage, right?
Right,
and it comes on and it mists him, and so that he can drink if he wants to drink from leaves. Generally speaking, he doesn't need to drink, though, because there's also a fogger that brings up his humidity at night, and then he actually hydrates through breathing in the fog.
Oh, but they don't. Cool. Yeah, they don't like to drink as much, do they, from a bowl?
There's no standing water in any chameleon's cages, like for drinking.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So they just intake it from their environment.
They breathe it in, and that's how they get it in. So if you fog them to the right level for the right time, they're hydrated, right? And then the cages have fans on them that are on timers for airflow. They have lights that are on timers for UVB and for regular light. So with the exception of having to put the food in, if you go away for a couple of days or something, like they get everything they need still.
And then that's one thing I do like about the leopard geckos. They only eat every 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
And so as long as they've got their standing water there, they're okay.
Right.
If I go off for like a weekend camping trip or something like that.
I went away for a week recently and we just had like a pet sitter came in and just fed them.
Yeah, that would be really nice. I don't have long enough vacations to ever need one of those, thankfully. But that's one of the reasons that they're awesome too, because my brother knows how to take care of them.
Yeah.
Since he's had reptiles himself as well. So he's always been my carer whenever I was gone for over a week.
Yeah. It's, anyway, I could talk about it forever because I do find it incredibly incredibly reflective and relaxing to be around.
They are.
Yeah. He's staring at me right now. Like here's what this stare means. I'm pretty certain. Bring a roach over here and give it to me.
I am hungry. Where's the fucking food?
And I imagine now people listening are like, did he say roach? But
yeah, no, the roaches, mealworms is what mine. That's mine. Roaches are illegal up here. The dubious.
Yeah. I have a small bin of them and I'm letting them breed because they're so expensive. I'm like, I don't want to have to buy them all the time.
The mealworms are pretty decently priced, but you can multiply them. I had 500 count probably sitting in this one tub and I just kept cycling them. I didn't pay leopard gecko food for a year until my breeding system died off. I have to make a new one.
Yeah, you don't realize when you buy a reptile, you're about to become a bug breeder and you don't.
Oh, yeah. It's not part of the first thought. Yeah. You figure that out afterwards.
So now I'm 53. And when people say, what do you do for a living? I go, I make a podcast. And then they say, and what do you do for fun? And I go, I have a chameleon. And I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't tell people any of this.
Bugs.
Yeah. Do you know what it's like to tell other adults you have a podcast?
Oh, I'd imagine it's probably, you get a lot of questioning looks and they just don't understand. Frustrating a little bit too, because you can't quite convey how important the podcast is to everybody. Because it's like 15 million downloads. It's a huge amount.
Yeah. Also, it's 17 and a half now, but thank you.
Wow. Congratulations. I push it wherever I can. Like if somebody's saying anything like, I don't understand, I'm like, Juicebox Podcast.
I appreciate it. Yeah. No, but it is really strange because it's not a job. I mean, like for most people, they're like, wait, what did you say?
Yeah.
It's like telling somebody you're the tight end for the Bills. Like, yeah. Like it sounds ridiculous. Like, no, that's not a job.
You make money off of that? Like a livable wage?
Yeah, that's the other thing. They're like, any reasonable adult later goes, I'm sorry. And it generates income?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to like buy the Taj Mahal anytime soon, but it
keeps everything running and you have a livable wage. And so I had people complaining is one of the things that I've seen as well.
Yeah, my wife has a job too, but like it helps pay the bills and I get to save a little money at the end and, I'm living my life. You have
3 chameleons who are very happy little spoiled babies.
I can afford dubia roaches.
That too, which I don't even know how much those cost.
Well, that's why I'm breeding them because they weren't cheap.
Fair.
Then they do get inquisitive. They're like, I don't understand. Like, why is that a viable way to, like, why is that a job?
Yeah.
And then when you explain it, they go, oh, that sounds great.
You've hit a niche where you got it, you rolled with it, and you've managed to keep it going.
It's funny.
It's amazing.
For it not to be on purpose, too.
Like, yeah. Because you just started a blog, and then you started making a podcast, because back in whenever you started, was it 2010 around then? It was popular.
Podcast in 2015. And it only because Katie Kirk told me I was good at talking to people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Literally. You do have a very, I don't know how to explain this, well-formed, well-thought-out, you're meticulous about things in ways that others aren't. And so you're able to pick apart information that most people would just brush by.
It's interesting. I had Erica, have you ever listened to any of Erica's episodes?
I think I heard one.
Okay.
It was a bit ago.
Yeah, she and I were talking the other day, and I'm going to have to bring her back on to talk about it more. But she said, we were talking privately. And she said, you had either had a therapist or a psychiatrist on Sandy. She was on recently. Mm-hmm. And during it, she's like, you could be a therapist. And I was like, I could? And then
you do have that ability. Yeah.
And I was like, really? And then Erica said, I heard her say that. And she's like, I have to tell you, like, you do a lot of things that are taught to therapists. And I was like, I have no idea about that. So she was telling me, and I was like, I can't even remember everything she said right now because I don't have that kind of mind. But she's like,
no, that's fair. Me neither. Goldfish brain.
when people say things, you ask questions correctly, you do this, your follow-up is really good, and like on and on. And so that was kind of it. So all really interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely. You've learned how to have the art of conversation extremely well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to let you go. Go live your life, be Canadian, and
go
prosper.
Go see my kid. Yeah, be Canadian. I'll ride my moose to work.
Yeah, I know you're going to. Don't worry about it. Hold on 1 second for me. Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Eversense 365. You can experience the Eversense 365 CGM system for as low as $199 for a full year. Visit eversensecgm.com/juicebox for more details and eligibility. Earlier, you heard me talking about Blue Circle Health, the free virtual type 1 diabetes care, education, and support program for adults. And I know it sounds too good to be true, but I swear it's real. Thanks to funding from a big T1D philanthropy group, Blue Circle Health doesn't bill your insurance or charge you a cent. In other words, it's free. They can help you with things like carb counting, insurance navigation, diabetes technology, insulin adjustments, peer support, prescription assistance, and much more. So if you're tired of waiting 9 months to get in with your endo or your educator, you can get an appointment with their team within 1 to 2 weeks. This program is showing what T1D care can and should look like. Blue Circle Health is currently available in Florida, Maine, Vermont, Ohio, Delaware, Alabama, and Missouri. If you live in one of those states, go to bluecirclehealth.org to sign up today. The link is in the show notes. And please help me to spread the word. Blue Circle Health had to buy an ad because people don't believe that it's free. But it is. They're trying to give you free care. If you live in Florida, Maine, Vermont, Ohio, Delaware, Alabama, and Missouri, it's ready to go right now. And like I said, they're adding states so quickly in 2025 that you want to follow them on social media at Blue Circle Health. And you can also keep checking bluecirclehealth.org to see when your free care is available to you. Hey, thanks for listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate your loyalty and listenership. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.